I've been looking forward to this conversation all week. Every time I talk with this guy, I always walk away with pages of notes and a headache sometimes too, because he moves so fast. He loves to think big. For those of you that don't know, Tommy Mello, he started exactly where many of you guys are, literally painting garage doors to pay off $50,000 in debt. He didn't just build a business. His business does hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Everyone knows A1 Garage Door across the country. And he also wrote an amazing book, which I hear pros sharing all the time, The Home Service Millionaire. If you haven't checked it out, you should definitely check it out. But the thing I respect the most about Tommy is it isn't just about the money. He always shares his playbook. He's super authentic. He tells you like it is. I just want to kind of give a warm welcome here to my good friend, the man, the myth, the garage door legend, Tommy Mello. Welcome to the session.
Thanks, Roland. I'm excited for this as well.
Awesome. Well, hey, I think one of the things you've done is build an amazing culture. And I think I hear a lot of people talking about culture. And, when it's a smaller company, it's really easy to control the culture. As you start to grow, it becomes more difficult because it outlives and outpaces you when you're not in the room, because you're not in every room. How do you think about keeping a good culture? How do you do it? How do you lead from the front? Give some tips for our pros.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, there's this story about the compound effect by Darren Hardy. And he wrote down like 100 things he wanted in the perfect woman he wanted to get married to. And in the process of doing this, he read it out loud and said, I'm not worthy of a woman like this. So he had to write down 100 things he needed to become to be worthy of the woman of his dreams. So when I read that book, I didn't get to 100 things, but I had to write down a lot of things that I would have to become to make it like somebody would want to work with me. And great communicator, lead from up front, leaders eat last, start with why. And it's gotten hard because there's well over 1,000 people here at the company. So, we created some software that I can interact with people on their birthdays, send them videos, anniversaries, work anniversaries, and we're very competitive here. So I like to shout out the big wins. And my team knows that I'm the good cop. I don't fire anybody. I'm more of a recognition type person. We're more of a carrot type company, but we do top grade. Everyone knows their expectations of when they come in. And I try to find somebody doing something right. We care a lot about our internal net promoter score, which means, are they promoters of the business? Would they recruit a friend? What are they doing outside of the business? Are they actively handing out business cards? Are they excited that they work for this company? We've gotten very, very, very deliberate on how we recruit. I would say that's the strongest thing we have right now. Our recruiter, Sophie, is one of a kind. We look for winners and we give them the expectation when they come in, and they got to continue to earn that right to be here. And although I was a technician, I've installed, the CSRs and the warehouse guys and the leadership team and the dispatchers need to be part of that as well. And I'm not great at that. I'm not great at that. So it's important that I recognize their birthdays and memorize names, which is hard to do these days. But I think that's
so hard. I don't even know how you memorize all that. That's like impossible for me.
Name badges help. And I think just the main thing is everyone knows where we're going. Everybody, we've got an equity incentive program now. It's profit units that go all the way down to the technicians and installers. They've got a stake in the outcome. They know what they need to hit to get that. And everyone's got, when I wrote the book, Elevate, I have to have a vision and a dream so big that everybody else's dream fits inside. So we have a full-time dream manager. Our job is to figure out what their goals, dreams. Do they want to go on a big vacation? Do they want to buy a house? Do they want to get their teeth fixed? Whatever that is, we need to work towards those goals for them. It's not just about KPIs, numbers, and revenue growth and EBITDA. It's about really making a change in their life. And once it starts happening, Roland, it starts to become addicting, and you watch people's life change for the best. And it's another reason.
House, they buy the car, they do these big life moments, and it's because you've built a business that can empower them to even do that. That's really, really addicting.
I'll tell you what, the people that it's so hard when you're a small business, you're fighting to make payroll. You're wondering why people are stealing from you. Someone just got in a car accident. They've got a workers' comp claim. It's hard when you're fighting every day until you start to hire smarter people than you around you for specific reasons, like a COO and a CFO and a controller and FP&A team. And I know I talk about these things and people are like, yeah, Tommy, it's easy for you to say, but they don't know about those days I didn't sleep. And they don't know about how I had a truck in 2014 and ran on Christmas and broke up with every girl I dated because I had to work and took out an equity line to just pay consultants and how people lied and cheated in the late nights. And so it's easy to see where I am today. Everyone wants the views, but no one wants to take the hike. It's one of my favorite expressions.
Yeah, totally. And I think when you're getting advice from people too, I see a lot of people on the internet getting advice from people that they wouldn't trade places with. So one of my favorite one is only take advice from people you would actually trade places with, because you see this all the time, which is why, we're doing the Winter Summit and interviewing folks like yourself, because I think a lot of people would like to trade places, but they might not be willing to do all the hard work. And that sometimes is also true, because it's not always easy. And difficulty comes in different forms. I think one of the things that is amazing is, you briefly mentioned it, but it's a golden nugget here, and you call them profit units. But essentially, people in your company all share in the upside of your business. I mean, you've made millionaires of people that have been on your side through this entire journey. Why is this so important? Like, how did you build this? This isn't a new concept, maybe in the tech startup world, but in the home services space, I feel like this shouldn't be a new thing, yet it is. Like, how, like, what would you do to convince someone that's maybe on the other side that's like, no, this is my business. They didn't take the risk. They don't deserve any piece of the company. They don't deserve any, what would you tell them?
Well, I talked to a guy, his name's Eric Van Dam, in 2019 in this very office. And I went to my whiteboard and he told me about every major deal in home service that's been done. And he said, have you ever heard of an equity incentive program? And he goes, here's the cool thing about it. Wherever you're at today, that's yours. So if it's $50 million valuation, a fair value valuation, let's say you sell for 300 million, there's 250 difference. You give 1% away, it's 2.5 million. When people start to think like an owner and run like an owner, and he convinced me that it was the right thing to do. Public companies do profit share, or they do
RSUs, ESOP, all kinds of stuff.
Well, a big thing they do is stock options, and every private equity company does P units, 10 or 15%. Mm-hmm. So I decided I was going to do it, and we went from 12 million to 27.5 million of EBITDA in about 18 months. And I watched people sprint. We talked to their families and said, mom or dad's going to be at work, but here's what it means for you. And it really impacted the outcome. And now I'm addicted to it. Every company that I've ever invested in, we're going to do an equity incentive program, and we're going to get people to think like owners, and they're going to affect their life. I thought about this. I don't want to be the guy on the top of the mountain popping a champagne bottle alone. I want to see people's lives impacted, the community impacted. And there's no company has any sense at all that wouldn't do this program, because there's only upside. And by the way, it's vested over 5 years, and it could be different metrics. It could be a time base. It could be a metric base, but it's not like you're just giving them equity. They earn it. And when they earn it, it makes a huge impact in the business. And this is a great way to recruit A-plus players and keep them to where they're not going to leave, because every A-plus leader here gets recruited 5 times a week. I mean, they are getting sought after. And what's going to keep them from staying? If you got a big company and there's another company that's paying way more, it just shows something about the company that they care more.
Yeah, and what's great too is when people are essentially given the opportunity to earn this, it vests over a period of time. And a lot of people go rolling, like, I have a hard time keeping my best people. And like you said, Tommy, like someone like, oh, they give them $1 more an hour, and they left, and you're like, what? Like, what would you have paid to keep your best guy? Would you have paid more? But I think the other thing that you said, which is the other golden nugget kind of hidden within that, is you only give this to people when they earn it, whether it's time units, whether it's they hit some sort of milestone, some sort of KPI for growing their division, is this a sales leader, et cetera. So they only get paid if you get paid first too, because you're the primary owner of the business. So those things kind of play into each other. And I feel like it takes a growth mindset to adopt that, and not just think, hey, I want to own 100%. I want to be the only champagne popper. It gets a little different than that. And then you get people that care about your customers, because they're not your customers. They're their customers too. So they start thinking about it in the right way. And I know you've got a cool, clever way too, where, if there's like an F up or something goes wrong, and, someone's got to go make it right, and they get like little budgets, that they can kind of pull from to make things right. I feel like there's a lot of cool things you can really start to unlock that I think a lot of business owners haven't thought about yet.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I'm a compilation of failures, and I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to go head first into a new opportunity. But we test things now. We don't go all in every market. We're in almost 40 markets. I've learned patience. I've learned discipline. But I actually encourage people to fail because the people I have on my team, they're going to learn from it and we're going to figure it out. I always say, by the time, I'm ready, fire aim. By the time the other company loaded the gun, we're already hitting the bullseye every time because we failed a few times. And people are like, dude, this is really hard. How do you expect to pull this off? I'm like, we're not. We're going to make a lot of mistakes in the process. But by the time we do, it's very hard to even compete with us because we've already made all the mistakes. Not massively costly mistakes, but A/B testing, testing out different software, KPIs, different training programs, different consultants. I started working with 2 new consultants. And by the way, I invest millions of dollars a year into myself because of the law of the lid. If I'm not growing mentally, physically, emotionally, the business will struggle. And I believe that with all my leadership team, but I believe that all the way down to the people sweeping the floors. So the law of the lid exists with the entire company.
Everywhere. Yeah. And, what I think is interesting here too is, reinvesting in yourself, but not just that is you only fail if you fail to learn. And so if you can make that cycle and just make it go much quicker, you're just learning much quicker. Sure, you're having failures along the way. And like you said, you're not making catastrophic mistakes. You're A/B testing things. Maybe you're trying this crazy new tune-up special that doesn't make sense under the cover, but maybe gets that business at a higher booking rate than the other one. And so even if you're losing a little bit of money, your booking rates to the roof, or little things like that, those little tweaks. I think that's what's helping you kind of get where people are looking to go, but they just haven't even had the time or chance or space to do that because they haven't operated that quickly.
Well, the fact is most people are working in the business, not on the business. Yeah. The old Michael Gerber. The fact is people tend to be very resistant to hiring people smarter than them and specialists. And I know it costs money, and it's very hard to do that when you're the central. It's like we've got a control complex. Most of the time I find the founder gets in the way. They're the bottleneck. But, I still feel like probably our secret sauce is I dream way bigger. I'm dreaming about a company that could provide for millions, not provide for millions of families, but tens of thousands of families. And the idea being is we're north of 300 million of revenue. And I'm like, I could see this business doing 10 billion. And you got to have a path to get there. It's not just a pie in the sky. You got to reverse engineer your goal. And I see a lot of people, they say, I want what you have. And I'm like, but why, Roland? Why do you want that? And I the first thing I tell them is, tell me you don't have kids and you're not married. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because you're going to give up everything. There's nobody I met at 70 that says, man, I wish I worked more. And now I started caring more about family and friends and faith and fitness and fun and future self. But finance, that gives you a lot of freedom. But financing is the only thing you could delegate, really. I mean, you can't delegate going to do push-ups and doing, squats. So
going on dates, with your wife, you don't want to do that.
And your kids. And your kids.
That makes total sense. I mean, look, I think what's hard is, and you've said this before in other places, but if you really want to scale, you kind of have to let the hustler in you die. And so hustlers want to do all of the things, and so you're like, oh, the hustler's got to die. But the hustler wants to do all the things, but to get to where you get scale, you can't do all of the things. And like you said, you have to figure out what you want to delegate. And all the things in your personal life you can't delegate. You got to go do those, right? You got to build your family, got to build the friendships, the relationships, all those types of things. On the business side, which is primarily financial, you can delegate 100% of all the things that you do in your business, because I guarantee you, on all of the things that you're doing, there's bound to be someone better than you out there already doing it. Question is, in what sequence do you hire and those things? So in the vein of that, let's say, you're one of House Call Pros here, and you're doing under $1 million a year. You've got a couple of people that have been with you for a couple of years. Like, how do you break through that first kind of mini ceiling here? How do you go from 1 to 5? What are the types of people you should be looking to hire? Maybe from an operations perspective, maybe from a tenacity or a skilled perspective. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I think I met Al Levy, the 7-power contractor. I was doing 17 million just out of pure grit, not keeping a lot of it. And he taught me about the org chart and standard operating procedures and manuals and understanding KPIs. I think the first major hire should be an executive assistant, where you're not looking at your email. You basically you get an old-fashioned calendar and you write down all the time you're wasting your time. Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell is a great book. If you find yourself doing $30 an hour tasks and not making an impact on the culture, the sales, what makes money in the business? Recruiting, training, booking phone calls, converting those calls, average tickets. So sales and marketing are the lifeblood, and understanding what the KPIs and the financials look like. And when you're not doing those things, I figure out you got 168 hours in a week. You spend 50 working out. You know, I could go through that, but I think you get sidetracked and you don't ruthlessly prioritize when you're small. Everything's a good idea. And you got to learn to say no more and say what's working. Let's double down on that. And how do I get back my time? Well, I don't do emails anymore. I don't do a lot of things that I used to do, but an EA is not that expensive, you know, an executive assistant. And then I do think you need a great CFO. Most founders don't have the right financial reporting they need. They don't have the right controller. There's money going out the door. They don't understand why. They don't understand what an ad back is. They don't understand a lot of things. And when I got the right CFO, everything changed for us. The bottom line started to become bigger. We started to make different decisions because I knew what was going on in the business. I was a really good operator. I understood marketing. I knew how to hire, but I didn't really understand what was going in and out of the bank. I think when you're a smaller company, you're like, there's money in the bank. We could keep growing. And then all of a sudden a big bill comes out and you're like, shoot, or the worst call is you get a CPA call you to tell you owe 300 grand. You're like, I don't even have that in my bank account. How is that possible? So getting your financials and the right person in that, for most home service businesses, EA, get control over the finances and understand what's coming in and out, and switch from cash to accrual. Even if you pay your taxes on cash, accrual is such a better way, and get a delayed draw term loan in place. If you need money to buy out a company or for growth, it's available.
Yeah. And look, you know, I think just to read between the lines here, if you're a $1 million company, don't go hire a CFO. Okay. There's plenty of people that will provide that as a fractional service.
Yes.
Okay. You don't have to start with a full blown, because you're probably not going to be able to support it at that size. But what Tommy is saying is, like, the EA, people think, oh, super expensive. You can start with an EA in the Philippines. Okay. You're spending 10 to 20K a year on a good EA, you know, in the Philippines, depending on where you source them from. Right. So you can start there. Ultimately, you know, if you can have someone by your side physically, that's going to speed the learning, because I think people learn a lot by shadowing other people, and you learn a lot of the nuance and the things in someone's day that you'll miss if it's just completely virtual. But you can start there, because I guarantee you there's like these $30 jobs that you're doing. We should be focusing on these $1,000 an hour jobs, right? And so, and whether that's sales and marketing, building a BD relationship, going to BNI, shaking hands, making babies with Chamber of Commerce, whatever it is, right? Like being out in your local community, that's going to drive way more impact for your business. Yeah, you got to kill that hustler a little bit. And if you're gonna get stuck because you want to do all the things, you know, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. But you got to 17 million. So a lot of people would be like, I'll be a hustler to get to 17 million. And I'm like, and then who cares? You know, and then sell out to private equity, you know. So
remember this: revenue is for vanity and profits for sanity. In that line, your ego is not your amigo. And people puff their chest out and talk about revenue. I don't call my buddies anymore. We don't even bring up revenue. Revenue is an afterthought. It's how much profit. Healthy companies are profitable. You can't take revenue. You can take it to the bank, but it doesn't mean there's anything left. Profit. Every business, there's a great book called Built to Sell. And every business should be built to sell, even if you don't plan on selling it. So if I asked you and I said, Roland, you're at $2 million of revenue, what would change if you were going to sell in 6 months? You say, well, I'd probably get rid of my uncle. He's still on board because he's family, and this. You'd have a laundry list of stuff, and you gotta make hard decisions. You chose to do this. Most businesses, 9 out of 10 fail. And I don't think it's not for the faint at heart. And one thing I wanted to mention is I think it's really important. People don't think about their brand as much as they should. They've got these stencils on their trucks. They think it's a cool brand. They named it Discount, you know, HVAC services. And that's the people you attract. When I rebranded at 30 million, you know, Dan Antonelli, you're familiar with them. Like, Al Levy convinced me to do it. And then I got a call from Ken Goodrich. And I'm like, dude, we're already successful. I had a lot of ego tied up in my brand. I pulled the trigger, spent like 30K. And all of a sudden, everybody was lining up at my door to work for us. The clients knew we weren't the cheapest, but we were going to get it done the same day with the best warranty, with background checked, good people. And I couldn't believe the change. And my buddy was just here, Dale, that used to work for Ken Goodrich. When they rebranded, their average ticket went from 12,000 to 20,000. And clients were calling them up saying, our HVAC unit's not broke, but when it does, we're just like you, Ken. We held our flashlight for the dad. And so you start to make it emotional. You start telling stories, and the brand should tell a story. And I think a lot of
People
people
resonate with that. Totally. Yeah. And it makes that closing job so much easier when the guy shows up and they give a quote. It's like, okay, I understand. I'm probably paying a little bit of a premium price for a premium brand, right? Versus the stenciled out truck that you mentioned,
Well, it's Nike. A Nike t-shirt costs $200. You can buy this t-shirt for $10. Brand matters. And I don't think people young in business understand that.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay. One thing here that I feel like is a way to kind of get through this ceiling here is this concept of pricing guilt. And I think a lot of pros have a hard time charging what they're worth, where other industries are like, yeah, totally, 30-50% margins, no problem. But in the home services space, I don't know why it is, but I feel like a lot of small business owners have a hard time getting a technician to understand that even though the part costs $20, they have a hard time selling the service for $400, right? They just can't make that leap because they don't understand all those pieces in the puzzle. How do you teach that to the technician? Do you teach like the owner something? Like, what advice would you give to get people to feel more confident? Besides brand, we covered brand. If you have a great brand, that helps. But like, what else? What confidence piece? What was it in you that felt like you could charge what you charge to run a profitable business?
Well, you got to add up all your costs and then add a margin. And
sure.
The fact is, most people don't know what their burden cost is. They don't understand. There's not 40 hours to work in a week. The only hours you're really working are when you're face to face with the client in their garage or on their roof. So the idea being, guys need training, guys need a drive time, guys need to do inventory, guys need to pump their gas. There's a lot of things that happen outside. The only time you're really making money is with the client. So you got to look at real billable hours, and then you got to look at how much is the software. You got a payroll software, you got a CRM, you've got the different things for your finance, whether you're using QuickBooks or whatever. Then you got to add up the truck costs. There's all these other costs, and most people don't. Going back to the CFO and understanding your numbers.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I don't always sell the top price. I give options, not ultimatums. So I'm going to give options. We could be the builder grade all the way up to the top notch. And there's so much hate on social media. Like, those guys charge too much. I look at these people. Can you let them know I'm going to be 10 minutes late? I look at these people, and they literally think they're taking advantage of clients, but yet they can't run their warranty calls. Their trucks are falling apart. I had 40 companies upstairs, and I showed them what HVAC charges, roofing charges, and they were garage door companies. And I said, how many of you guys charge this? One guy goes, how do you sleep at night? I said, how much does your average guy make? He goes, 70,000. I go, how do you sleep at night? Knowing that you're keeping every single employee, the horrible benefits, driving used trucks, no training, old tools. And the fact is, you're holding them, you're literally, they live in the ghetto because you give your customers a great deal to screw over your employees. That's the way I look at it. So we pay the top. We get people that show up that aren't going to steal from our customers, that are going to smile, that are going to create raving fans. I think that's the most important thing. You pay right, and it's performance pay. There's no tenure in this company. It's meritocracy. And people go, well, those companies charge way too much. Why is it that the most expensive company is always the biggest and spending the most in marketing and paying their people the best? I mean, it's a big misconception, and it's small minds that just they don't understand. They're like, that's not fair. But the fact is, they don't even know their burden cost to run that call. They're working out of their house. Their wife's working for free. Their son's working at $13 an hour, and they're proud of it. And they're like, I just want to make an honest living. I'm like, I'd want to set up my kids for success. I want to make sure that I'm helping out my parents, and I want to build a legacy with this business and make sure everybody wins.
Yeah, I think one thing that you mentioned in there, which I think is an easy, maybe not an easy fix, but something to take a look at, is what are all the things that you're doing that you're not taking into account for your costs? So you said working from your house, your wife's chipping in on the phones, you've got your son or daughter working the business at less than minimum wage, right? Like, all of those things you're not adding into your billable hour rate. So of course, it may seem like you're charging the right price, but your underlying cost structure just isn't right. And then it goes back to what you're saying at first. It's like, look, you really got to kind of understand your numbers, your underlying real numbers. That's if you can't even start with, what do you need to be charging from a billable hour rate to even just roll a truck? Like, what's the cost to roll a truck independent of doing any work? Then you should probably go revisit some of those numbers. Let me switch real quick to kind of like a rapid fire mode, because I think you're going to like this. Tell me about what's your favorite island to go visit? If you're to go like on a vacation, what island are you going to?
An
Or not
island. You
beach?
know, here's the deal. I enjoy the beach, but we're building in Sandpoint. I enjoy lakes more.
Hmm.
I love fishing, but if I had to go to an island, you know, one of the islands that's on, is I want to go to Italy and Sicily. I'm Italian. Look at this nose. I mean, obviously I'm Italian, so I'd love to spend time. I'm not good at slow culture, so it's something I need to learn to just slow down and be okay having a lunch for 3 hours and just getting to know people.
Hmm.
But yeah, listen, we love our vacations. We love spending quality time. And if I could bring my parents or my niece and nephews or my sister, all the better. Because look, the one thing I can't buy is time and those experiences. Nobody looks back at, look, the one day I don't want this to be a waste. I want to say I experienced everything. I lived my fullest. I went 100% and I had a lot of fun and I went deep into the relationships I have. I tend to say I want to hang out with people I have a common future versus a common past.
Ooh, a common future. I like that. That's a good nugget. Yep.
What other questions? That's a great question.
Well, okay, so now you're on this island. Okay, so let's say you're on Sicily, and you're on this island, and Bree goes, Tommy, you can only look at this one metric for your entire business for the next month on your phone, and it's only one number. What is that KPI? What is that number?
Yeah, it's well the bottom line EBITDA percentage. I would look at the dollars, but really the percentage of revenue going to the bottom line. If everything stems out from there, yeah, because I
Yep.
got 4 KPIs: your booking rate, your conversion rate, your average ticket, and your cost per lead. That's what builds the budget. That's how I buy companies. That's the lifeblood of the company,
Mm-hmm. And then
and it
all
all
of
comes
those,
back down to EBITDA.
yeah, all the way at the bottom. I like that one. All right, next one here. Okay, you can only pick between Indeed, Facebook, or poaching from a competitor at the gas station to recruit your next employee. Which one are you going to?
Well, scalability, Indeed, and ZipRecruiter. You know, we've been playing around with that, and that's going to be the best source. But social media really matters, and having a great landing page. And if you're going to be on Indeed or Glassdoor, you better have your happy employees, which I call my coworkers, leaving great reviews. We're so focused on Google, Yelp, and Angie, and all these other things. Get great reviews. People care, even if they're a referral. They're going to go check how you are online and what your coworkers and the people at the company are saying about you. But we've done very well on all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Referrals are the best. If everybody could get one referral a month,
Ooh,
the company would 12x in a year.
yeah,
You know what I
yep.
mean? So I think it's the referrals last longer. People feel like they need to make
Your
sure this
buddy
person
works. You
succeeds.
can't let your buddy go. You know, you're working with your buddy. You can't let them down. The buddy's like, well, I can't let Tommy down because he referred me, so I'm going to try harder. And I think I 100% agree. I didn't throw referrals in that mix, but I'm glad you threw that one on your top one. Okay, another one here. What's the most expensive failure you've had in the last year that you're actually glad happened?
The most expensive failure, you know, I will say, I'm not going to say names, but one bad hire. I'm the CMO right now, and I won't say I had any bad hires. They didn't lie, cheat, or steal. But you don't want to let marketing go too far away. Marketing is a big deal. It's the lifeblood of the company, and you know we try to interview the best we could, and I'm sure you've been through this. But if you make the wrong mistake with a leadership in a big role, it could set you back 6 months. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to let marketing trail off again in the culture. I'm involved with marketing, culture, and sales, and I like to know what's going on in the business, but I give a lot of trust. But the fact is, one wrong hire. I like to set people up, and this is a good piece of advice. If you're hiring a great leader, bring them in as a 1099 for 6 months, set the expectations, pay them more as that trial period, and just say, we're going to test out, make sure this is right for you, and make sure it's right for us. And I think that's going to be a winning formula for most companies.
Yeah, and the way you pitched it is also a really good example of these small little nuances you add in here that I don't think business owners are taking advantage of and really learning, which is like, we want to make sure this works out for you and it works for us. You start with that you first, then us, because you could have switched that. You could have switched that, but you didn't, but you might not even know that you did that. But I think those small things are the things that matter when you're thinking bigger, you're thinking larger, you're thinking about scale, you're trying to recruit the best people because that's what resonates. Okay, last parting word here because there's so much. I mean, this whole thing. There's like, oh, we're gonna write this all down. There's gonna be like a little takeaway. But last good piece of advice you can give a struggling business owner that is, hasn't reached that $1 million mark yet, but looking to get there, what piece of advice would you give them? Is it grit? Is it growth mindset? Is it a book? Is it learning? What is it? What would you tell them?
Yeah, well, the best advice I could give you is my dad and my grandpa were men's men. They never asked for directions. They go the wrong direction. They could take anything apart, put it back together. I've learned my favorite 3 letters are ask, A-S-K. And success leaves clues. When I really built A1, the real foundation was going and visiting $100 million HVAC plumbing businesses, learning about financing. I showed up with a lot of humility. I showed up and said, I don't have it all figured out. I'm very curious. I'm a big fan. I'll buy you guys lunch. And success leaves so many clues. And I call it R&D, rip off and duplicate as much as you can. But don't always be that student forever that never implements. The people that I went and visited, they say, you go do this, then you come back for more, but do not come back to us until you do these things. So I learned very quickly, they're willing to give me a little bit of attention, but they'll give you a lot when they see you're a doer and not just a talker saying, here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be the best. And I'll do 100 million. I said, listen, I'm struggling. Give me an opportunity. And they saw themselves in me, the younger version of themselves. And because I was curious and I was going to do the work, and I walked in with an empty notebook with a smile, just a young kid asking questions. They said, you're a garage door guy. I'll give you everything. And so that's the best advice is go learn from the best. It's like the oxygen in their facilities are different. The productivity is different. And it tends to bleed out onto you. And then you get it and it clicks and all of a sudden you're just killing it. And I would start a podcast just to get people on there that you want to get to meet. I go on a lot of podcasts, even if you got 10 followers and I do that as a way to give back. So those are a couple of things I do.
I love it. That's great advice. If anyone asks Tommy any questions, he's so accessible. Of all the people that I talk to, he's always there just a text away. Hit him up on Facebook. But more importantly, I like what you left with is if you get advice to someone or you kind of open your arms to them, the worst thing is that they don't execute and go do something. So if they go do something, they only come back. I'm like, oh, great. I'll tell you more. And I think people just want to help other people. And you've always been that way, which is why I definitely wanted to get you on this winter summit here. Tommy, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure talking to you, always giving so much wisdom. And I'm sure I will see you around.
Thanks, Roland. Always appreciate the opportunity.